Hi, and welcome to this Android video. This is a high-level discussion of 2D graphics. I would really encourage you, after you view this, to go ahead and view the 2D graphics demo, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. If I show you how to do it, it is much easier to understand the concepts involved than if I just tell you about it here. But this will give you a high-level overview of how 2D graphics are drawn in the Android platform. So with 2D graphics, we draw our lines and shapes into a canvas, and the canvas actually contains a bitmap where we're actually drawing the pixels. So we need a handle to the bitmap, we need a handle to the canvas. We draw onto the canvas conceptually, but actually what's happening is that pixels are being turned on and off inside the bitmap that the canvas is containing. We define this canvas and other things like the paint object that we're going to be dealing with inside the view subclass. Now this view is just a normal view, but it's of type view, and our subclass must extend a view. So this view is set as the content view of an activity, or it could be added to an activity's existing view as a subview. We can also do that if we want to draw inside a smaller area inside of our main view. We can certainly do that. But typically, we have an activity where the full screen is going to be used for graphics drawing. So this view subclass has to override three methods at least. It has to override view's constructor, and in which it calls up to the superclass's constructor. And it also has to override onMeasure with 2 ints and OnDraw as a canvas. OnMeasure sets the measured dimensions of the view. So this is very important, as you might think, because the view needs to know how big to display itself. So onMeasure does that, and OnDraw actually draws the canvas object every time the view is invalidated, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. OnMeasure takes 2 integers, the width, first the width, and then the height, and those parameters are set. This is a abstract method of view, and so we don't have to worry about where these integers come from. We just have to define them in the parameter list of OnMeasure. So in OnMeasure, the object of the game is to set the width and the height of the view. This is also kind of a good place, as long as we can do it fairly quickly, it's kind of a good place to put initial setup for the view. Many times you'll see the canvas and the bitmap actually being instantiated in OnMeasure. This is something that we do in the demo. It's not really the best thing to do. We need to really kind of avoid that if we can, but it's a lot simpler to initialize the canvas and the bitmap inside OnMeasure because we've already got the screen dimensions there. So it's a good place to put some initial setup, as long as that initial setup runs quickly enough. And then once the width and the height have been established, have been determined, we need to call a method called setMeasuredDimension, and we pass it the determined width and the determined height of the view, and that will actually do the job that OnMeasure is required to do. SetMeasuredDimension is a method of view, so we can just call it without a qualifier, or if you wish, you can call this dot setMeasuredDimension. That does the same thing. OnDraw is called every time the view gets invalidated. Well, the view itself can invalidate itself by calling invalidate, or some other process could invalidate the view, or periodically, typically several times a second, the view is just going to get invalidated anyway. So OnDraw needs to happen as quickly as you possibly can, so because this can be called many times per second. So this code should be as small as possible, and typically all we really have to do, we're getting a canvas object, all we really have to do is call draw bitmap on that canvas, because that bitmap is going to be drawn by other methods in our view. If we need to make changes, we need to make calls to those other methods within OnDraw. But again, if our bitmap changes over time, we need to make our OnDraw code itself as terse and as small as we possibly can. So hopefully you're getting the point. OnDraw should be a tiny little method. Draw bitmap actually draws the canvas's bitmap. So we call it on the canvas object. So it's canvas, whatever we name our canvas in the OnDraw parameter list, it's whatever that is, dot draw bitmap, in which we pass the bitmap two integers, which are the left and top coordinate, and then the paint. We haven't talked about paint yet. That's the next slide. So we call that on the canvas object, and then paint itself, well, first, we call draw bitmap, and that actually does the drawing of this bitmap into the canvas on the view. So that's how that works. Paint is an instance of the paint class. So what in the world is a paint class? Well, the paint class object controls the color and the style of any pixels or lines or shapes or any primitives of the canvas draw methods that exist. So paint is kind of our paint box for drawing on a canvas's bitmap. It has many, many, many methods that offer a very high kind of picky level of control. We can draw in any style, in any color that we can think of. We can draw with different stroke patterns and fill patterns. There's a ton of stuff that you can do with paint. Typically, we'll use a single paint object property in the view and then change its properties or modify its properties as we go along to change the color or the style or the fill pattern or whatever we need to do. We'll do that unless we need to flip back and forth between a couple of different paints or a couple of different styles. Unless we really need to paint two colors or styles at the same time, we'll just use one paint object and modify its properties as we go along. Okay. Take a look at the demo now and study the code to see how all of this works. Try using different styles in Paint. Try using different draw methods on the canvas and see how that works. Try modifying. What we're doing in the demo is we're drawing a square, a red hollow square, onto our canvas. Try drawing it with a filled style and see where it takes you. Really explore what you can do with 2D graphics, because it really is a very powerful approach to putting simple graphics within an Android application. Thank you very much.